at breakfast on LBC.
I'm joined by Prime Minister Theresa May. How will we ensure that some troops who might behave illegally don't slip through the net?
If there are credible allegations of criminal behaviour, those should be investigated. What the government is doing today is saying to our troops, we're on your side, so that when they go out into combat, they have the confidence that they can do the job that they have to do.
When Kenneth Clarke described you as that bloody woman, how did you react?
Well, actually, what he said, and I don't normally swear, was I was a bloody difficult woman.
And are you, Prime Minister?
You know, Ken and I had our interesting debates in the past, and I stand by doing what I believe to be the right thing, and if standing up for what you believe to be right is being bloody difficult, then so be it.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast, every weekday morning from 7, only on LBC.
I think if we're in a world where the Prime Minister and Nick Ferrari both say bloody on the radio, that means we all can. That has to be like the new rule, I think. Nick Ferrari at breakfast from 7. European criminals who commit even minor offences will be deported and banned from the UK for up to 10 years for the first time. Is this fair? Nick talking to the Home Secretary, Amber Rudd, about her proposal. Also, the latest from the US vice presidential debate. It's happening right now, in fact. Maria Sharapova's 2-year doping ban has been reduced to 15 months as well. Find out why with Nick Ferrari at breakfast. He'll be joined by Lucrezia Millerani, the ITV Millerani, I should say, the ITV news presenter and reporter, for a look at the newspapers this morning. Morning, it is LBC. I'm Darren Adam with you till 4 o'clock, and we are looking at the words that will be spoken. Not the ones you've just heard there from the Prime Minister, but the ones that she will speak at the Conservative Party conference and its final day in Birmingham. Later on today, she's going to draw a line under the era of David Cameron by declaring her determination to reposition the party in what she says is the new centre ground of British politics. Enough of the words. I want to hear about the actions that you think she should be taking. A little less conversation, maybe, from Theresa May. What do you want her to actually do? 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC. Email Darren at lbc.co.uk. Of course, we haven't voted. And I don't attach any blame to her or even the electoral system for this, because it cuts both ways with both parties. But we haven't had an election at which the country had a chance to vote for candidates of a party led by Theresa May. In other words, we've not had a chance to vote for the Conservatives with at least the possibility that Theresa May will be Prime Minister as a consequence of making that choice. Same, of course, was true of Gordon Brown. Same was true of John Major in the final days of his first term, and go back far enough, Jim Callaghan as well. So that's not a criticism of the Conservatives or even of the system. It's just a fact. But I think right now, Theresa May could win an election, or at least the Conservative Party led by Theresa May could win an election. They could win a majority of seats in this country. I suspect one of the reasons that she doesn't want to go to the country just yet, apart from the whole the difficulty of overcoming the Fixed Term Parliament Act, which is considerable but not impossible, she wants to wait till the boundary changes come in, because those boundary changes are worth a lot of seats to the Tories. Well, not a lot of seats, but enough to perhaps increase a likely majority yet further. So it's going to be 2020. She's going to be here until 2020, and then highly likely she'd win another election as Prime Minister in her own right. What do you want her to do between now and then? 04560600973. Kathy in Mansfield in a second. Here's Mortimer, who says, activate Article 50, sort out immigration and the NHS, and put Nicola Sturgeon in her place. Well, Mortimer, I'm definitely with you on one of those. Kathy. Morning, Kathy.
Hello, darling.
You all right?
Not so bad.
Good.
How are you?
I'm very well indeed. I can't quite believe it's the middle of the week already, but there it is.
I know. It flies.
It really does. Something else that's been flying is the Tory party conference, because it finishes today.
Yes, yeah. Well, time passes, doesn't it?
It does. What do you want from Theresa May as Prime Minister, then?
I think what I would want, I have to say, I'm not a Tory voter, but I'm not dissatisfied with what Theresa May is doing at the moment. But she's got a big job on her hands, and whoever gets in, they've got a big job on their hands. But we want people working in GB and all contributing together as they work. We want to accept people who adhere to our rules but don't lose their own culture. It doesn't matter what origin, country, or whatever face they have.
Yeah.
But we have to work together, and we are a wonderful country, and we've produced, and we still have wonderful... This week we've had 3 people who were British going in for the Nobel Prize. And we've sold so many things or let them go, and doctors, etc., over the years. And we have to value what we pay for and keep them here.
Yeah.
And I think that move of 4 years working here is a very good move, because we've produced so many people in the past.
This is Jeremy Hunt and his idea that if you get trained by the NHS, you can't go abroad and work for 4 years.
Well,
okay, my fear with that is that it's going to make people think, what, really? Well, I'll go and train elsewhere then. You know, I won't even start the process here in the UK. Well, I think it's riddled with danger, to be honest. But
well, we've lost an awful lot of people that we've trained and paid to be trained.
Yeah,
and
largely because of the contracts that Jeremy Hunt is handing out that no one likes.
Well, I don't like them either, but let's face it. He's got a new Prime Minister, and he can't do quite what he used to do, and I am wholeheartedly in support of the doctors, the junior doctors. What we want in this country is fairness, but it isn't going to happen immediately, Darren. But if we can take it step by step and bring things back into proportion, which were totally out of kilt, and integrate with people and value what they have to give, and put right where it's going wrong.
Do you know what do you think you know what she stands for? Because I don't know really what Mayism is. I don't know what Theresa May's political philosophy is, and maybe it's too early to tell, but she was the Home Secretary for 6 years. Do you have any real sense of what she wants to do with and for the country?
Well, I wouldn't have an absolute opinion on that, because as a Home Secretary she had to do what the Prime Minister said, didn't she?
Yeah, but there are lots of politicians who've been in one of the great offices of state, and you get a sense of what they're about as a politician. If you're Home Secretary or Foreign Secretary or Foreign Secretary, I guess, if you're in one of the big three jobs, usually big personalities tend to be in those roles, and you get a sense of what that person and what that political brain wants for the country, even though they're not Prime Minister. I don't really know what Theresa May wants.
I can only tell you, Darren, that I feel that for the last 6 years, this country has had no hope for ordinary people, and it's a glimmer of hope. She may achieve it, she may not. Her aims might be too high, or maybe not. But she's speaking my kind of language. Let's equalise a little, because the division between the have-nots that work, I must say, I'm not talking about the people that don't work.
Well, some people that don't work can't work, of course. It's not their fault.
Well, some of them it's not their fault. Some of them yes, it is their fault.
It's not as big a number as people think, though. I mean, the amount of benefit fraud that takes place. Well, it's a much tinier fraction than people think.
I live here in this real world, and I know who's malingering and who isn't. And I worked till I was 65, and all my family worked.
I'm just saying. I mean, the figures which determine the amount of money that's wasted on benefit fraud is considerably less than people generally think when that opinion is tested in opinion polls. People assume it's a lot more than it is.
We still cannot afford consistent malingerers, and we've got enough of our own. But that's not what we're talking about.
No, indeed. I mean, I think we can both agree that persistent malingerers, and great band name actually, persistent malingerers, they probably need to be stopped. We can probably agree on that. I'm just saying that the number is probably not as great as many people think. But anyway, Theresa May is I think, Kathy, she is talking the language of the left. You know, she's talking about, as you say, if not actually using the word equality, but talking about moving to the centre ground, presumably from the right. She wants to reject the templates of the socialist left and the libertarian right. So, there's a real sense that she's moving the party away from the Thatcherite roots and away from David Cameron as well. And I think it's a brave move, but I think she's got the space to do it.
Well, fairness, I think, is the word you're searching for, Darren. Fairness.
Yeah, and I'm looking for it in her speech.
And fairness. And until we get that in place, but you see, there's so. I wonder, Darren, when people come here and they're doing things that we think aren't right, do they understand our laws? Are they told our laws? You know, you cannot blame people for coming here and doing things that is acceptable in their own country.
Well, those numbers, for better or worse, are going to fall from within the European Union, presumably, now that we've taken back control, or control will be wrestled back in some way in that regard. But we know, of course, that immigration from outside the European Union is a higher number than from within it anyway. So there may be two aspects to this. Kathy, thank you for that. Great to speak to you. 0345 6060 973. Is she going to use the word fairness? Well, she's going to say, if we act, this is Theresa May, not Kathy, by the way, if we act to correct unfairness and injustice and put government at the service of ordinary working people, we can build that new united Britain in which everyone plays by the same rules, and in which the powerful and the privileged no longer ignore the interests of the people. Again, that could have come out of the mouth of Jeremy Corbyn as much as it could have come out of the mouth of Tony Blair or maybe David Cameron. They are fine words. They're very broad words. They're words with which it is hard to take any particular issue or have any particular disagreement. So we know what she's going to say. I want to hear from you what you want her to do. What do you want from Theresa May's premiership? Let's, as much as it's possible to do, I know that everything is now viewed through the prism of Brexit, and that's understandable, but let's just try and park that for a second. Let's assume that that's on track, and let's assume that happens by 2019. And let's assume as well that Theresa May has also got one eye, at the very least, on the post-Brexit Britain. What do you want her to do as Prime Minister if we leave all the Brexit stuff to the side just for a minute? 0345 6060 973. You can text 84850, tweet at LBC. And email darren@lbc.co.uk. I'm going to speak to Bill in Birmingham in just a few minutes' time. We'll get to you straight after the news. Bill, do let me know what you think about Theresa May, the words that she's going to say, and the actions, more importantly, that you would like her to take in the next 4 years as Prime Minister. What do you want from a Theresa May premiership? 0345 6060 973. And as Kathy and I were saying a couple of minutes ago, I don't really know what Mayism is. I don't really know what Theresa May stands for, despite the fact she was Home Secretary for 6 years. Maybe you're one of her constituents in Maidenhead. Perhaps you know of her as a constituency MP. Apparently she's quite a good one. She's also a thumping majority in that seat. If you've had dealings with Theresa May, if you can give us some sort of insight into our new Prime Minister, who, and again, this is no criticism of anything other than the system, perhaps, a new Prime Minister who was elected by nobody other than the voters in her constituency. Tory parties, didn't get a vote because everyone else dropped out of the race. 0345 6060 973. Bill in Birmingham next. LBC News Time 2:31. Let's get the headlines with Zora Suleiman.
Diane James has quit as leader of the UK Independence Party after just 18 days in charge. The 56-year-old was voted in as leader last month. 10,000 people in Haiti are in emergency shelters as one of the worst storms in years sweeps across the Caribbean. Hurricane Matthew has killed at least 9 people in the region. It's now made landfall in Cuba. And 2 men have been arrested on suspicion of murder after a man in his 20s died at a shopping centre car park in Kent. The victim suffered serious injuries last night in Westwood Cross in Broadstairs. A 20 and 27-year-old are in custody. LBC weather mostly dry and clear through the night. A sunny day tomorrow, highs of 17 degrees.
This is LBC.
High quality, affordable kitchens designed in your own home. That's Room Sense.
That's Room Sense.
Book your free Room Sense home design visit and we'll measure up, show you samples, create a stunning kitchen design and give you a quote all before we leave.
Quality at a price you can afford. That's Room Sense.
Book today at roomsense.co.uk.
On a travel pack tailor-made holiday, you get to see the very best of the world. Tour the famous Route 66, the spectacular Canadian Rockies. Experience the magic and history of India, the wilds of Africa, or the exotic Far East. Start your journey with Travel Pack. For amazing prices on your tailor-made holiday of a lifetime, call Travel Pack today on 0208 903 9999 or visit travelpack.com. Atoll protected.
Hi, Lou. Jump in. Oh, nice ride, Becky. Liking your new Vauxhall. Good price. It was actually, Lou. Just took it for a test drive and got £500 off straight away. Can you believe it? Right. That explains the tiara. Yes, a bit of bling. Why not? I just jumped in and got more. Oh, I can see that, Bex. I can see that.
Jump in and get more at Vauxhall. Our test drive offer gives you an extra £500 off Corsa, Adam, New Astra and other selected models registered by the 18th of December at participating retailers. Exclusions and T's and C's apply.
It's free for you. Yeah, I'm talking to you. You ironing your shirt. You revising in the library. It's free for you out there driving. And you lounging on the sofa. I've not forgotten you, the one scrubbing dishes. Oh, and you looking fly in your bright purple shades. Nice. I'm talking about the current account switch service. It's absolutely free, man.
Switching current accounts has never been easier. Visit currentaccountSwitch.co.uk.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC with Darren Adam.
0345 03456060973. What do you want Theresa May to do? Never mind what she's going to say at the party conference later on today. What do you want her to do as Prime Minister over the next 4 years? 03456060973. Here's Bill in Birmingham. Morning, Bill.
Good morning, Darren. How are you?
Very well, thanks. What do you want from our fairly new Prime Minister?
Well, in answer to your question of what would you like her to do, I'd like her, first of all, to sack Boris Johnson. You may think that's a weird sort of suggestion in view of the conversation we've been having about details of Brexit and this and that. But quite frankly, I mean, the reason I say that, his rhetoric before the referendum was really, in my opinion, quite deceitful. The business about saving money and national health having 350 million weekly, that's not going to happen, apparently. And it's an amazing decision to include such a person in the cabinet in such an important office, foreign office. And in my view, it's only a matter of time before he's going to drop the ball as foreign secretary and make some absolutely ridiculous remark, which in my view could make Trump look rather rational, because I mean, as Mayor of London, he came over as a buffoon.
Yes.
And if we're going to leave Europe and are going to be paddling our own canoe, then you need a foreign secretary that is going to be sensible, rational. And at the moment, he's keeping his head under the parapet, quite obviously, because he can't believe his luck, you know, that he's...
No, you're right, he really can't. And he's not going to be on that zip wire anytime soon, is he? Because he knows he's foreign secretary. He knows he has to behave, or at least try to. But, you know, even when it comes to issues about which he was expressing an entirely different opinion before the referendum, such as Turkey's membership of the European Union, he's now loudly proclaiming that it's the best idea ever and that it should happen. And yet this was precisely what he was warning us of, were we to stay in the European Union. So the logic of that is he's happy to inflict this terrible thing on 26 other European countries, which is the presence of Turkey. And indeed, he wants that to happen. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, certainly not. He's very inconsistent, and I think as a cabinet member of the cabinet, they should members should be consistent. They should be credible. And as Mayor of London, he came over as a buffoon. And as a foreign secretary, once he starts with his rhetoric and his silly remarks, we're going to be looked at as the basket case, not of Europe, but of the world.
I think if you are the mayor of a big city like London, then you know you can and maybe even perhaps should have a big personality, even if that is quite a buffoonish personality. That sort of fits the job. It's a personality role. Which is why I think he more than got away with being Mayor of London. He was elected twice as Mayor of London, against, on each occasion, a very popular previous mayor. So, you know, you could see why he kind of fitted into that role. You could see why the picture of him on the zip slide, for example, was, if anything, something that kind of played into his image in a positive way. I agree with you, it absolutely doesn't when it comes to him being foreign secretary. As to why Theresa May made him foreign secretary, well, there's not something in this argument that she's sort of insulating herself if Brexit doesn't go in quite the joyful gangbusters way that people like Ian Duncan Smith thinks that it is. If it doesn't quite work out, shall we say, is she insulating herself by having three of the big Leave names, one of which is Boris Johnson, in big offices of government?
Yeah, it's a very clever move, actually, because she although tacitly wanted to remain, but she didn't campaign very loudly to do so. But she's now posting these three members of Parliament in these key positions, and if it goes belly up, then she will say, well, it's not my fault, but it should be her responsibility as PM to make sure that you don't have buffoons in the cabinet. And yeah, I mean, as Mayor of London, perhaps he could get away with his bonhomie. But having said that, he mustn't be a chameleon. Who's the real Boris Johnson? You know, I'm not obsessed with the guy, but I think really he does come over as being a rather inconsistent, as you rightly pointed out, with his rhetoric and policy on Turkey and so on, and foreign policy. So he's not a very credible person, in my humble opinion, but he's keeping his head down. I think also he probably struck a deal with Theresa May by stepping down as a candidate for the leadership, because she must have said, well, yeah, I'll make sure you get a key office if you keep your head down, type of thing.
I wonder about that, because it just seemed to be such a surprising thing that happened when he was given not just any role but that role. I think he was genuinely surprised as well. So I'm not sure that there was a deal done between her and him to drop out. I didn't get that sense. Maybe I didn't get that sense at all. I didn't think that was part of the dynamic that caused him to drop out as a potential challenger. As I've always said, Bill, he didn't really want Brexit to happen. Didn't think that Brexit would happen, and was sort of counting on. He wanted it to be 51-49 for Remain. I'm convinced of this. So then he could be the leader of those who wanted Brexit to happen, even though he didn't really, and he would then be very well placed within the Conservative Party to become Prime Minister when David Cameron eventually stepped down, as he was pledged to do sometime before 2020. It didn't quite go to plan because Brexit happened, and that really did sort of put a fly in the ointment as far as Boris was concerned, I think.
Yeah, it did, and I think Brexit. Unfortunately, I voted to Remain, actually, because I think economically we're starting to slide downhill now, big time. The exchange rate is pretty poor, and unfortunately, we are probably going to be heading for a massive slump, I think, but unfortunately.
Well, we just don't know, because it hasn't happened yet, which is the point. Brexit hasn't happened.
No, I know, but you can predict.
Well, you can, but it's what's interesting to me is that the stock market's at a historic high, and yet sterling hasn't been as low as this since 1985, which isn't great news for me, because I'm heading off to America on Friday for a couple of weeks holiday.
Yeah, very nice too. I've got a few holidays planned as well, and that's why I just come back from a little holiday in France, and the exchange rate was absolutely grim, and so prices are sort of almost double what they were about a year ago, virtually.
Actually, a friend of mine said to me 6 months ago, he said, you'll be buying your dollars now then. And I went, why would I do that? I don't get currency when I go on holiday, just get money out of the cash machine. And he went, but what if Brexit happens? And we sort of looked at each other and laughed and said, that's not going to happen. Brexit's not going to be a thing. How wrong we were, Bill. It sounds like you were as well.
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely. But the thing is, the reason I voted to Remain, although up until the very last moment I was all for leaving and everything, I spoke to a chartered surveyor, and because I'm about to sell my property and a few properties, and the chartered surveyor said, oh my God, if we do leave, then property prices are going to fall. You're not going to do very well, and so on. And that's why I changed. Selfishly, I agree, but it's just indicative of how things might pan out. Perhaps on the other hand, people might say it's a good thing because house prices are too inflated at the moment. But
and it helps exporters as well. I mean, to be fair, I'm being slightly facetious when I lament Brexit because it means that I'll get slightly fewer dollars to the pound. I'm certainly not pretending that would be a reason to reverse the decision to leave the European Union or anything. And it wasn't my reason for remaining. I've got a million reasons for wanting to have remained, and actually, the currency exchange rate isn't really one of them. Bill, thank you for that great speech this morning. 0345 6060 973 is my number. What do you want Theresa May to do going forward? We know what she's going to say tomorrow. She's going to make a pitch to essentially own all of the political centre ground, and presumably the bit the Tories own already. I don't see them ceding that to anyone. So this is about her saying, yeah, you know what? Brexit, that's a thing. We've talked about it. It's going to happen. I've given you the dates, but there's so much more to Theresa May than Brexit. And here are a list of things that I want to happen. This is what Mayism is. She's not used that word, But I think it leads to an interesting question, that idea. What is Mayism? What does Theresa May stand for? What do you want her to actually make happen in this country? 0345 6060973. You'll remember, of course, on Sunday, she did a speech on Sunday. She kind of got all the Brexit stuff out of the way there, you could suggest. She cleared the decks with the plans to trigger Article 50 by March and move all the current European laws into British law and then decide which one she wants to get rid of. That, I think, was her clearing the decks to allow her space to focus on all of the other issues, everything that isn't Brexit, all the issues that don't have an X in them. And that's what we'll hear later on today. So what do you want Theresa May to do over the next 4 years? 0345 6060973. Whether or not you voted for the Conservatives, and if you did, it will be under David Cameron. Whether, like me, you've never voted Conservative in your life, this is who's going to be leading the country for the next 3.5 years, certainly. That's going to happen. The possibility of that changing is slim indeed. It's not impossible that it would change, but it's very unlikely. So assuming that we've got her as Prime Minister for the next 3.5 years, what do you actually want her to do? What do you want from a Theresa May premiership? 0345 6060973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC. And you can email me in a variety of ways. You can do it through the website at lbc.co.uk. I'm Darren Adam. It's 2:45.
LBC.
This winter, British Gas are doing more to help our customers avoid boiler problems and unexpected bills. Home care boiler cover starts from just £9 a month for our energy customers and includes a service every year. Plus, we're introducing Boiler IQ, alerting us to breakdowns so we can help fix them quickly. Buy online by 31st of October and get 1 month free on selected home care products. That's 12 months for the price of 11. Wilbur, calm down. Search British Gas Home Care to find out how we can help keep your home warm and working. Conditions apply.
Selco Builders Warehouse is much more than just a builder's merchant, and we just opened a new branch on Mitcham Industrial Estate, Mitcham, with huge stocks of timber, building materials, plumbing, electrical, decorating, kitchens and bathrooms, tools and much, much more on the shelf. Selco is stacked to the rafters with thousands of trade price products ready to take away same day. But don't just take our word for it, see it for yourself. Selco Builders Warehouse, now open, Mitcham Industrial Estate, Mitcham.
We got it at Selco. Selco, it's where the trade go.
Oh, I'm not doing salad again.
Darren swears to his wife he can still fit in his wedding suit.
I don't need to diet, love. I'm the same size as when you married me.
He swears a lot more when he tries to do it up.
I think those dry cleaners might have shrunk the suit a bit, though.
We all bend the facts now and then, but advertisers aren't allowed to. If an ad isn't legal, decent, honest and truthful, it mustn't run. ASA, Advertising Standards Authority.
Hi, Lou. Jump in. Oh, nice ride, Becky. Liking your new Vauxhall. Good price. It was actually, Lou. Just took it for a test drive and got £500 off straight away. Can you believe it? Right. That explains the tiara. Yes, a bit of bling. Why not? I just jumped in and got more. Oh, I can see that, Bex. I can see that.
Jump in and get more at Vauxhall. Our test drive offer gives you an extra £500 off Corsa, Adam, new Astra and other selected models registered by the 18th of December at participating retailers. Exclusions and T's and C's apply.
You don't need a fanfare if you got a great offer. Get £25 cash back on small business insurance from Simply Business. That's £25 off, and we won't be beaten on price, because if you find a lower quote from someone else, Simply Business will pay the difference. You still want a fanfare? Ta-da! That do it for you? For £25 back, search Simply Business Radio now.
New customers only. Full T's and C's at simplybusiness.co.uk/radio. Simply Business is authorised and regulated by the FCA.
Darren Adam on LBC.
0345 6060973. What do we want from Theresa May? It sounds like the start of a chant. It wasn't intended to be. What do you want Theresa May to do rather than say? Because we've got a fairly clear idea what she's going to be talking about in her conference speech later on today. But we've got the best part of 4 years of Theresa May as Prime Minister, perhaps longer than that. So what do you want from this unelected Prime Minister? I'm not criticising her for being unelected. I'm just simply stating it as a fact. We haven't yet had the chance to elect a Conservative government or elect members of a Conservative party led by Theresa May, in the expectation that if more MPs from that party win more seats than anyone else, then she'll become the Prime Minister. We haven't had that chance yet, is all I'm saying. Of course, there are many historical precedents, so I'm not criticising her or anyone else for that. I'm just simply stating it. You know, what would What is it about Theresa May that might lead us to vote for her in the next general election, whenever that happens to be, almost certainly 2020? 0345 6060 973 is my number. She is entering some quite interesting areas, I think, for a Conservative Prime Minister. She's going to point to a review of workers' rights that's currently being chaired by Matthew Taylor. Maybe not a name that springs to mind immediately, but he's a former aide to Tony Blair. She's going to talk about education reforms aimed at boosting social mobility and a £5 billion housing package as well. Now, I'm all over that, the housing package idea. I think that the major problem with it is that it's nothing like enough. And we have talked, have we not, before about the importance of house building, the need to get more houses built in this country. That £5 billion housing package will not build as many houses as you think or as many houses as we need, but it is a start. And I think if you get into construction, if you start building houses, you press into service so many different skills and talents and employable skills that the benefit to the economy is far, far greater than simply adding another house to the pile of houses, even in a shortage. It touches so many other areas of the economy in a positive way. So that's all great. You know, I'm a Labour supporter, and I'm going to absolutely say she's doing the right thing by saying that. I think she should go a lot further, nonetheless. 0345 6060 973 is my number. What do you want from Theresa May? What do you want her to do? One person who's not convinced is, as you might expect, Tim Farron, the leader of the Lib Dems, talking about the fact that in her short spell as Prime Minister, she's planned to reintroduce grammar schools, and he takes that as a sign that she's somewhat less than the egalitarian that she implies that she might be from the words that she will say later on today, talking about wanting to correct unfairness and injustice. And I do agree with that. I don't think you correct unfairness or injustice by returning to selection. And I think it's interesting, actually, that the Labour Party, who don't seem to be terribly united on very much at the moment, are at least united in their opposition to this idea that grammar schools will return. They don't quite have the numbers to make it mathematically difficult in a parliamentary sense for Theresa May, but at least Labour are uniting on something. It's a start, isn't it? Anyway, Theresa May, what do you want from her going forward? This is Marge, referring back to our previous call from Bill, who says, "Hi, Darren. Bill is slightly obsessed with Boris Johnson." Well, he went out of his way, didn't he, Marge, to say, "I'm not obsessed with Boris Johnson." I think he had a keen interest, shall we say, in the surprising Foreign Secretary. Boris is not really bumbling, says Marge. It's an act. He's very clever. Why shouldn't he be Home Secretary? Well, of course he's not. He's Foreign Secretary. He is very clever. But he was also photographed on a zip wire wearing Union Jack pants over his trousers, wasn't he? That's the image that seems to be uncompromisingly seared into my mind. I think we were just making the case, Marge, that it's not really a sort of Foreign Secretary look. Can't imagine Lord Carrington, for example, being dressed in such a way, suspended from a zip wire. No one's doubting Boris's intelligence, and the implication from you that he's playing it down to perform some kind of act. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely he is. But maybe we don't want a Foreign Secretary that feels the need to play down his intelligence. Marge, thank you for that. Another text this morning says, and this is quite interesting, "I will never accept that we haven't elected our own leader, but I'll also never accept that we haven't been truly informed and prepared. This country is in a terrible state of affairs. Brexit will forever be the worst decision this country has ever made, and somehow I truly wish and hope that Theresa May can stop it." Well, I suspect there aren't many people who are hoping that whatever Theresa May does in the next 3.5 years, that she somehow stops Brexit. And, you know, goodness me, we've talked about this before, and I'm completely in favour of remaining in the European Union, and still am. But I just don't see how you could sensibly desire a position in which Theresa May somehow subverts the democratic will of the people in that way. I am horrified still by the result of the referendum. But I can't sit here and pretend that it didn't happen. I can't pretend that over 17 million people didn't vote for Britain to leave the European Union. And I don't want it to happen, but I don't see how it doesn't, and I don't see how it shouldn't, or why it shouldn't, because that's what people actually voted for. who knows, maybe at some point we'll want to rejoin the EU. And if such a decision was ever put to me, I would be straight down to the polling station to suggest that we rejoin. But we aren't there, and I'm not asking that we get there. I'm not advocating that. I'm not saying there should be a second referendum. And nor am I saying that Theresa May should try to stop the results of the Brexit vote. I mean, it happened 3 months ago, and I think all she can really do, and all she should do at this point, is say, look, we need to get on with this, because uncertainty is in itself incredibly corrosive. I mean, we've seen the results financially with the pound collapsing and the FTSE rocketing of the decisiveness, but indecisiveness can be terribly, terribly damaging as well. And I think if the markets were to get a sense that we were going to dither on for the next 2 or 3 or 4 years in some way, that wouldn't be terribly helpful either. I think we just have to accept that for now, if, like me, it seems that you're on the same side as me, we voted to remain in the European Union, we were outvoted. That's democracy. Sometimes the other guy wins, and it's horrible, and it sucks, but it's the way we do things. 0345 6060973. You can text 84850, tweet at LBC, email Darren at lbc.co.uk. What do you want from Theresa May? She's going to be at number 10, and occasionally outside it, speaking at the microphone, at the lectern, or possibly in the Rose Garden for the next 3.5, 4, maybe up to 4 years, well, 3.5 years, through until May. How do you want her to spend that time? What is it about Theresa May that you'd like to see emerge in terms of her political philosophy? What political philosophy do you want her to have? Because she seems a bit like a blank sheet at the moment. That may be a very unfair characterization. She may have a very, very, very clear idea of what she wants to do. And I think she's talking about some of it later on today. But we don't yet really know, do we, what Theresa May is all about as a politician and as a Prime Minister. 0345 6060973. What action do you want from her? She's talking about action. She's saying, this is what government's about, action. It's about doing something, not being someone, about identifying injustices, finding solutions, driving change, taking, not shirking, the big decisions, having the courage to see things through. This is what she's going to say. Well, what is that something that she should be doing? What are those injustices that she needs to identify and solve? What are the solutions that she needs to look for? What's the change that she needs to drive? What are those big decisions? 0345 6060973. If you were in number 10 Downing Street for a week and you had all the levers of state in front of you and you could pull them, you could press them, you could prod them, you can do whatever you wanted, what would you be doing? If you'd found yourself in number 10 Downing Street and you were the Prime Minister, what would you want to be doing? What do you think is wrong with this country? What do you think is right that could perhaps be consolidated and improved upon? What would you keep? What would you change? And would you move, as Theresa May wants to do, to what she's calling the centre ground in which the Tories will step in to protect working people? I think it is an interesting idea that she's expressing, that the Conservative Party are going to essentially recast themselves, not just as the party of the centre ground, but as the party of the working class. Not being traditionally their comfort zone, I think it's fair to say. 0345 6060973. What are you after from Theresa May? We've got an idea now of what she's going to say at the conference later on today, but what is it that you want her to actually do? She's going to say, let's have no more of Labour's absurd belief that they have a monopoly on compassion. Let's put an end to the sanctimonious pretense of moral superiority. Let's make clear they've given up the right to call themselves the party of the NHS, the party of the workers, the party of public servants. Implication being that she thinks the Tories will be the party of the NHS, the party of the workers, the party of public servants. What, are they going to finish the conference not with her speech but with the red flag? Caris on the Wirral. Morning, Caris.
Hello.
Hi there, welcome.
You'll have to bear with me, I'm a bit nervous.
Oh, you're fine. It's just me and you, Caris. It's all good. Don't worry. What would you like to say?
You said what would she like to do in this Parliament?
Yeah, what would you like her to do?
I would like her to cancel any VAT on any British product or any British holiday or anything that you buy in Britain, so that it would give us a bump start and make us more support Britain.
So, okay.
The only thing is, I have been told by my hubby that he doesn't think she's got the power because the EU wouldn't allow her.
Well, she certainly doesn't yet. I mean, as long as we're in the EU. But even then, if you start... I mean, it's a kind of protectionism, really, isn't it? You'll be looking at taxing everything that didn't come from Britain, so it's a sort of protectionism. I mean, it would depend on the other deals that we did with the rest of the world, I guess. So...